The season won't start until month's end, but a new era in Bulldogs volleyball is already well underway. Scott Mattera was named the 11th head coach in program history last December, an incredibly respected teacher and developer of talent. My guest today has already been hard at work in formulating a championship-winning recipe here in Ruston. Strap in, the Tech Drive starts now. Fueled by coaches, student athletes, and the ones who make Tech go. Welcome to Tech Drive, the official podcast of Louisiana Tech Athletics and the video debut for those watching on La Tech Live as part of the Louisiana Tech Athletics YouTube page. We thank you, those listening. For all the audio heads out there, just search Tech Drive wherever it is that you podcast. I'm the voice of the Bulldogs, Kyle Schasberger. To my right is Scott Mattera, the head coach of the Bulldogs volleyball team. Scott, pleasure to have you. These are some pretty sweet digs, huh? Here in the AD suite, Ryan's home for home football games.
Well, when we were negotiating, if I was going to come here or not, he asked me, is there anything you want in the contract? And I said, talk to me about Squire and talk to me about President's Suite for football games. So, it's not too shabby up here.
How's the Squire thing going? Because I have yet to play around.
I have yet to play either. I've been entirely too busy. I've taken a drive out there, and I can't wait to get out there at some point. But I need to sharpen up my game a little bit, or I'm going to hit one of those nice houses.
Longtime club coach, college coach, social media unicorn of sorts that you've become. And we'll get to that. You've been in this industry for so long. And here new in Ruston, we talk about Squire. I was hoping to take some cues from you because, I'm relatively new as well. I haven't been here as long as you. We both are trying to get out to Squire Creek. But how are you adjusting to life here in northern Louisiana?
Honestly, I've loved it. It's a little more my speed in terms of, I think it's just the right size. In that it has everything you need and everything you want. You got your commercial areas, but you've also got your hometown stuff. And, the nice thing, you can be anywhere, max of 15 minutes. And it's really cool to be in a town where the university is central to the town. It's just you feel like a big deal, and our athletes get to feel like a big deal. And the partnership between the town and the university is something I've never experienced before. Oftentimes in college towns there's some tension, between, the college kids are, but this town absolutely loves this university and vice versa. I mean, even on my interview here, I was able to meet the mayor at Ponchatoula's, and it's just a cool vibe to be a part of, and I've really enjoyed it so far.
We will get to the interview process because I'm curious if it was the carousel, the car wash that I had to endure earlier this year. But I wonder, too, you got away for the summer a little bit. You have to. You got to unwind before the start of the season, and you're in Montana. Yeah. I think I had seen. Tell me about the visit to Montana, and how long was it before you had missed Ruston? Because it took me less than a day the first weekend I got away where I was like, you know what? I miss Ruston.
It's funny you bring it up because anybody that knows me is probably annoyed by how much I talk about Montana. It's just kind of my happy place. My brother and I, a few years back, were able to find some land up there, and it's the place I go to find my peace, and it's you go up in the mountains and everything just kind of melts away, and so that's where I go to recharge my batteries. But, traditionally I try to go up right before we move back for preseason just to get my head and heart and soul in the right place, and, eventually we're going to try to play some matches up there so I can take the team and share something that's that special with me, with the team.
That would be sweet. And you come from San Antonio where you were coaching, and we'll document that more in detail. But I saw an HEB run also. You stacked your cooler and brought that back?
When it comes to it, if anybody that's lived in South or Central Texas and now it's starting to take over the rest of Texas, I am an HEB loyalist. And if you're a Texan out there, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You just you get spoiled with it. So, took the cooler with me and came back with several of my favorites. And some of my Texas recruits have offered to make grocery runs, have their parents make grocery runs for me.
I love that. I'm from Chicago, and whenever I go home, it's Chicago hot dog, the Italian beef, the Chicago pizza, which is not deep dish, folks, okay? That is a novelty tourist thing. Sure, it's good, but our everyday pizza is the square cut, the
Now,
thin
I'm,
cut.
I'm going to fight you on Detroit style. That's where I grew up. So.
I just can't. I can't do it. It's not worthy of my time. I just
It's
cannot.
got to be good Detroit style,
Sure,
but
sure.
That's hit or miss.
Well, the Bulldogs volleyball season will begin in earnest in Hammond for the Southeastern Showdown with 3 matches the weekend of August 29th. There is an exhibition game August 23rd at Northwestern State. You're at home for the first time starting September 11th as part of the Bulldog Bash. You have the More Than Wins VB social media channel. We'll get that out there now. We'll revisit. We'll come back. But let's start with your arrival now, beyond just adjusting to Ruston. Last season, this Bulldogs team had gone 8-24. 8 games in 24 was their record. 2 in league play, 2 wins. Director of Athletics Ryan Ivey pegs you as the next head coach to guide the program. Your first order of business was what?
Honestly, getting to know our players and finding out, digging into why we've got a lot of great kids but weren't putting wins on the board. And, so a lot of that is you come in this first year and it's all about building relationships and culture. One of our first core values of our program is trust allows truth, but that takes time to build that level of trust so that we can be truthful with each other and call each other up to a standard of performance. So we've been investing really, really heavily in just getting to know each other and, off the court stuff. I mean, we sit in our offices and talk all the time, and probably 10% of it is volleyball. So instilling that culture and the foundation, and then really just digging into the basic skills of volleyball. Oftentimes you get to a D1 university level, and the assumption is they know how to play, so we're only working on systems or scrimmaging and whatnot. But we're going all the way back to how do we touch the ball better on every touch, whether it's first, second, third touch. Let's get better at the skills of volleyball, and then all of those systems and strategies work a heck of a lot better. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel and sit in on some of the best programs in the country, all the way up to the big boys that are winning national championships. And in their gyms, the ones that looked the most like a high-level club practice were the ones winning national championships, where they were breaking down skills and making sure we're touching the ball the right way.
And by my count, it seems like you walked into a pretty good situation preserving the talent that was on the team.
Yep.
4 newcomers, 13 returnees, if my math is correct.
Yep.
You couldn't ask for anything better.
No, it's fantastic. The cupboard was not bare at all, so kudos to the previous staff, and I'm very, very grateful for them and have a great relationship with them. And then they did a great job recruiting. We have some really nice freshmen coming in, and we were able to add one more major piece in this 2025 recruiting class. And honestly, they've come in maybe even more ready to contribute than I thought they might. With freshmen, you always go on potential, but it's a matter of timeline when they're going to be ready to contribute at this level. And I'm really pleasantly, I won't say surprised, but pleasantly happy with how far advanced they are.
You spent the previous 6 seasons at Our Lady of the Lake University in San Antonio. 113-42 mark, insane 70-8 showing in the league, 6 total championships, not to mention your final campaign in 24 where the Saints made a second NAIA tournament, set several school records in the process. What made Louisiana Tech the most logical step for you next in your career?
Honestly, I was very happy there in San Antonio with the business running and, working in the club universe and the smaller university setting. And it really wasn't on the radar until Ryan called me. And the more I looked into it, the more I looked into Ruston, the more I looked into the history of women's athletics here. So I don't see a reason why we can't build something special here. And it just stuck with me. And I couldn't sleep. It was one of those, wow, this might be a really cool opportunity. To prove that the More Than Wins way can win at Division I, and we can do it the right way. And so this just recharged the batteries and was like, let's go, let's get on a new mission here.
So Ryan called you?
Yes. Yep.
This wasn't you seeing the opening, seeing the change of leadership, and contacting Louisiana Tech. Ryan, I'm sure there was some familiarity because he spent time in the state of Texas. You're a big name in the volleyball circles from a coaching and development standpoint. The women, the girls enjoy the opportunity to be able to work with you. Ryan didn't hesitate. He went out and got a guy that he wanted to bring to Ruston.
Now, I know I was not the only phone call, so
Sure.
I'm not going to go there. But, in addition to collecting, applicants through the normal channels, I know he also had a criteria that he was looking for, and then went, okay, here's a list of people that fit that, and I happened to be on that list, and then the process began from there.
So was it a car wash of epic proportion once you got to the final stage where you're just going through the ringer?
A little bit. So, they sat me down with basically all the admin. I'm in the middle of the table with eight administrators around me just doing rapid fire. But I'm one of those weirdos that actually enjoys that. I like things like this where we get to talk about the program, talk about the history, brag on the kids that I've had in the past and the kids I have now. And so it was actually a lot of fun, and I was happy to get to meet everybody in that type of setting, because sometimes you go through a job search and you meet 2 or 3 people and you really don't get a vibe for everything. So it was actually a really cool process.
Your first year at Our Lady of the Lake was 2019. Your team won 19 games, advanced in the Red River Athletic Conference Finals. Lost in a dramatic 5-set match. Looking back, what do you feel was most critical in finding that sort of success year one on the job, and is that transferable here at Tech?
100%. So there's 2 things that I always talk about that I've learned through my career that I had to get better at, and I'm still working on getting better at it. But number 1 is unity of message. And what I mean by that is we coaches can fall in love with a whole bunch of really good things, and I call it spray and pray, where we just give a bunch of really good messages. But if you were to run into one of our kids in the elevator and ask them, what's the volleyball program all about, they'd probably say good things, but not necessarily all the same thing. And when we took over at OLU, I said, no, we're going to focus in on 3 core values that we are going to build everything around, whether it's our recruiting decisions, how we build out practice plans, how we even call each other up when we're slipping. And we've centered around those 3 core values and really built around it so that everyone's on the same page. Because this requires a lot of buy-in, man. When you're asking people to buy into something, you better be specific about what you're asking them to buy into. And those guiding values have been really, really huge. And then the other side of it is that buy-in, where it was, hey, let's sit down and talk. Let's build that trust. Let's talk about why this is going to work. I'm a big why guy, even to the point that I'm probably really annoying at practice and some meetings where I'm always explaining the why of why we're doing things. But I think the modern athlete especially wants to know why. It's not just I go do this because coach said so. So, and I want to be producing not only athletes, but young ladies that want to go out and coach and give back. So when they understand the why, then they can go and teach it later in life too.
Well, and I feel like that's transferable in life away from sports too, seeing the forest through the trees.
Yes.
And being able to not just be a robot, but understanding the purpose and the impact that you have in every aspect of how you carry yourself throughout life. Pull back the curtain if you can to the practice schedule now.
Yep.
We're recording 1 day removed from, I think, our first official practice with the season right around the corner. Workouts, meetings, the recruiting process, the preseason phase of training is technically kind of over here with our 2-week build-up now into the first set of matches. What's the practice schedule like now that we're so close to the start of the season, and how does that maybe change once matches get underway?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Volleyball is kind of an oddball with its practice calendar, in that the NCAA doesn't allow us to do much during the summer. We can't have contact. They can come in and work out, weight room stuff, and they can do open gyms, but we can't train. So to come in and have basically 2 to 3 weeks of ready time, so we're going every day. Now, old school used to be 2-a-days, 3-a-days, everything like that, but we believe that tired is the enemy. So we want to work our tails off during the blocks of training that we have, but we want to train at a fresh level. The longest volleyball match in the world goes 2.5 hours. So, practicing 6-7 hours a day can actually lead to some bad habits, or your legs are tired, so we're not down in defensive position properly, and we develop some bad angles. If I'm not jumping to my max height because my legs are so dead, I'm going to throw my timing off. And everything we do is based on timing and trust. So, when you hear the horror stories out there about, Division I athletics is 15 hours a day, and you're in the weight room 6 hours a day, and on the court 8 hours a day, and then you're never sleeping. And we're balancing our lives where we work our tails off, but we try to keep it balanced so that they're fresh. So right now they're doing some physical work, weight room work every day, but that varies, based on the workload. And then our practices are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, and we're going in the afternoons, evenings. We do a team meeting where we talk about culture, we talk about sports psychology, we talk about school, study skills, everything like that. And then we just have some team meals together and some fun time in the evening. So it's every day except for Sundays, but it's not as absurdly, grind as everybody tries to make it out to be sometimes.
Speaking of meals, from what I understand after this conversation, there's some food left over from lunch, so I'm going to come join you at the TAC for practice.
That was actually a really cool thing that we tried. We called it Family Day, so we had all of our girls move in on Saturday, and we invited all the family over to stay and be a part of day one. So we did a whole program meeting with all the families, and I gave them a season outlook and talked about our philosophies and asked them to buy into what we're doing too. Because that's such a huge deal if you have alignment from your families all the way down, because it's really hard to fight the dinner table, man. So I'm asking the families to get on board with our philosophies and our values. And then we had an open gym so the girls could play and the parents could watch. And we stepped out and just said, hey, meet each other and put names with faces. And then we had a meal with all the family and everything. And it just felt really family-ish. A lot of programs throw that word around, but what are they actually doing to make it family style? But our campus catering hooked us up, and we had quite a bit of leftovers. So you guys are more than welcome to stop by and take some home.
Family style. GB knows what I'm talking about. In Chicago, in the Midwest, passing a dish around.
Absolutely.
It's something that I don't come across a lot in the South. And you might just be, saying that. And that's not necessarily the act of passing the dish and whatever it is, but family style just resonates in such a communal way when it comes to family and breaking bread around the table. So
I grew up. Mattera is a very Italian name, and I grew up with Sunday dinners, and like I said, just from Detroit, that Midwest, but also that Italian kind of. We get together every Sunday and pass the dishes, and I feel that.
You like mascaccioli?
Of course.
Does that mean anything to you?
Yes, of course.
Gosh. Nobody in the South, I haven't met a single person who knows what mascaccioli is. And look, I came from North Carolina. They still didn't know what it was. I'm not totally foreign to Louisiana, but mascaccioli is a foreign concept.
Amen.
Injected into my veins, all of it. In July, there were a lot of camps, which you're no stranger to. A college prospect one for junior high, variety of other high school-centric ones. They will eventually lead us into the social media part. But the brand you've built for coaching and development, it's obvious you thrive in this space. Where does that come from, and how much do you enjoy, put the social media aside, but how much do you enjoy that actual intimacy attached to working with individuals and teams one-on-one?
So it's a really interesting question because a lot of coaches just went from their college career right into coaching. And I didn't do that. I was dabbling in some high school coaching, maybe some club coaching, but I was also very entrepreneurial. So I was fortunate enough to own a sports and fitness facility, did some finance work, some real estate development. I didn't really start the college coaching thing until I was 30. So that entrepreneurial mindset and itch, I was worried that it wasn't going to be scratched. But when you take over a program, a college athletics program, it's like running a small business with all of those aspects of accounting and marketing and budgeting and HR and everything. It all fits together there. So, where the camp stuff came from, the ability to teach is such a big deal. And, can you break down skills but still keep it interesting for a 12-year-old? I always joke about being the king of dad jokes. I don't have kids, but I love dad jokes. And we try to keep it interesting and fun as we're breaking down some really nerdy, deep biomechanics type teaching. So that's really resonated with kids and with parents. They get a chuckle out of it too when they're watching. And, it's just been one of those things that the camps have always grown wherever I've been. I've been fortunate enough. I did a lot of private lessons over the years. And when you coach a private lesson for an hour of a single volleyball skill, you better learn how to make it entertaining. And you better learn how to problem solve on the fly, because each kid's going to have something different biomechanically that needs work. And so I think that's really where a lot of that teaching style developed. And, we try to keep it fun. Oftentimes we get into that, again, that grind mindset, and it's got to be all blood, sweat, and tears. But I'm like, let's not forget the laughs and let's not forget the joy. If this thing ain't fun, why are we doing it? So, and I think that permeates the camps, and people really enjoy that mix of nerdy biomechanics and good teaching, but also a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There were some other stops along the way that's aided in your arrival to Tech, including both at the high school, small college ranks. These after earning a bachelor's in finance from Toledo in 2001, where you played for the men's club volleyball team. Now, you mastered in liberal studies with a focus on the Sociology of Sport at Toledo. How did the undergraduate degree and finance background or aspect of this pave the way for your first head coaching gig as an Ohio JV coach?
That's a very interesting mix, isn't it? You know, undergrad in business finance and graduate degree in sociology. So, you know, I've always been kind of a nerd about why people think the way they do, why people act the way they do, especially in group dynamics and things like that.
This goes back to you asking why about everything and drilling your players.
Exactly. So, you know, I'm a business and entrepreneurship-oriented guy. I like the creation process. You know, finance was always interesting to me from an investment strategy side of things and whatnot. So when I was building the sports complex that had volleyball courts and volleyball as a part of it, and then moving into coaching the high school programs and, oh, well, if we fundraise this, we can do this. So how do we fundraise that? Let's, you know, start a camp business. Let's do apparel sales. And so all of that business stuff has really contributed, you know, heavily all the way down to the high school, then moving into college, obviously. And then just the sociology side of things, you know, sports has always been the leader in bringing people together. You know, if you look throughout history, where do diverse groups of people come together almost before any other time? It's generally either church or sport, and sometimes even more so sport. And, you know, because you're on the team with somebody that you might not have ever interacted with, and you get to know them, and it breaks down barriers like crazy. And I think that's why it's such a cool thing to be a part of. So that had always intrigued me about sport, and what are we doing with sport, and how can we use sport to just basically make the world a better place.
This is awesome stuff. That facility you bring up, that was the one in Toledo, 60,000 square foot volleyball facility. Yeah, I mean, this guy, he's not just a social media guru and content king or a coach. I mean, you're an administrator. You picked up so many, you know, essential skills throughout that process that, again, all have helped to facilitate your presence here at Tech. So close to 56,000 followers on Instagram, 28,000 on TikTok, nearly 2 million total likes. The account is More Than Wins VB. It's a social media coaching content company you founded that services both coaches and players. There's the online presence as well. How did this insanely popular service and social following originate? When did it begin?
It actually began during COVID. So it was a really weird time to be a coach during COVID, because you wanted to keep your kids active, both, you know, for sports and performance purposes, but also just mental health. You know, they were stuck inside and had so many restrictions on what they were allowed to do. So we as coaches were always trying to find ways to, how can we still keep you active? How can we scratch that itch and get you out of the house and still playing volleyball and pursuing your passion? And, you know, the very first one, if you scroll all the way back to the beginning, it's me and two kids in a private closed gym with masks on, tossing balls and setting reps. And, you know, so it was one of those, I just wanted to put some stuff out there. Hey, here's some individual stuff you can do. Parents, if you toss this way, they can get their setting reps in the backyard. And so that was the impetus for it. But, you know, a lot of my coaching friends over the years, or players who became coaches, would always text, hey, what was that drill we did when I was playing? And then I'd have to type up this long explanation. So part of it was to, you know, take some workload off of me, where if I just start posting all of these videos, oh, now I just send you a video link to that one. Or, hey, coach, do you have a drill for this? Yep, send him a video link. So we just started doing it every day. Every day we posted, you know, anytime we were at practice, you know, it'd say, oh, yeah, that's probably a good one. Can you film this? And I'd hand somebody my phone or whatnot. And, you know, so the videos are not nearly as high a production as these guys do or anything, but there's some authenticity where, you know, it's just, that's coach's phone in the middle of practice. And it just took off. You know, people started word of mouth, and then we had a couple, you know, kind of catch viral that was, oh, that's a great idea, I love this. And it's just grown steadily over these, I guess it's just over 4 years now.
Yeah, I think there's a humanizing element too as well. With, it doesn't have to be the best production. It can just be your cell phone, and it seems like it's something you didn't start for financial gain. Not at all. This was just something to help pass the time and help others out during a time of need, during a pandemic.
I'm glad you bring that up, because, you know, unfortunately, the Sociology of Sport guy coming out here again, youth sports has gotten absurdly expensive, and volleyball is one of the worst culprits in terms of, volleyball has become really one of the sports of the rich kid. And, I wanted to do something, because I'm part of that. I'm not pointing fingers. That's this, So I said, how do I help this? And my idea here is that this coaching content will never be behind a paywall. I want everyone to be able to have access to, hey, if I really want something, I can go and find good, skills, drill, development stuff that I can literally do in my backyard with mom or dad tossing me balls. And for young coaches that are getting into it, I want to help. I want coaching to grow. I want, so that this game, which we all love, and it offers such great opportunities, is open to everybody, not just the people that can afford $4,000 a year for club ball.
And I'm sure you could never have imagined that it's grown to the size
No,
that it has.
that was not strategic in any way, shape, or form, other than just staying consistent with it. And then when it started going, I was like, oh man, I better learn some of this. And I'm still a babe in the woods, even though 56,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm still asking my girls, how do I repost from this to this? And they're all laughing at me. So,
well, back to the interview process, because I'm actually curious if Ryan or somebody else might have asked you this, but how do you balance that, right? The particular passion of yours with actually coaching a team, being the CEO of a program in Division I, and do you sense maybe that aspect of your life? I'm sure it has. We've talked a lot about it already in terms of it adding a level of versatility and attractiveness to you and what you can bring to this program. But again, this all sets the stage for you here at Tech, but how would you measure the balance that you plan to take?
We're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And even in the interview process, we had that discussion of how do we leverage this? It wasn't an either or. It's, wow, we've got a really cool opportunity here. And I'm sure Kev will back me up. I think our Tech volleyball account has more than doubled, just in the past 4 or 5 months, because we're collaborating on stuff. I'm pushing it out to the More Than Wins followers. Hey, follow Tech VB. And, where it's come in really, really handy is legitimizing us to recruits. And what I mean by that is I am blown away how often I'll make a first contact with a recruit who might be a stretch for us, with where we're at in our program right now. And they're like, oh my gosh, I follow you, type thing. And honestly, let's be honest, to a 16, 17-year-old, 56,000 followers might mean a lot more than it does to you and me. So that's really helped a lot, both in the recruiting universe and just that get the word out about the kids we've got right now and the good things that are going on here in our program.
A couple more minutes with Scott Mattera, head coach of the Bulldogs volleyball program. Let's talk more about this year's team. What has pleased you the most through training thus far?
Man, I could not be more grateful for their level of buy-in. I know that sounds like such a cheesy coach talk term, but they're excited. And I mean, you just walk in our gym today and you'll feel the energy. It's just different. People came and watched our spring match and they're like, whoa, they're having fun. There's a lot of smiles, but they're playing hard. We came back from a deficit in our spring match. Normally spring matches, I don't care if we win or lose. It's just, let's get some stuff on video, but I felt like we needed to win this. And, so we pushed and we got pretty competitive down towards the end of that. And so just the faith that these guys are showing in us and their buy-in to the boring, nerdy biomechanics stuff and the culture stuff. When you look at our team GPA, it's popping, from where it was, and they're taking that stuff seriously. And so I could not be more grateful and satisfied with what's going on in our program right now. And then obviously, we've got some really nice pieces returning that have really stepped up. I think you're going to see some really big things from several of our returners. Julia's back and her shoulder's starting to feel good, and she's such a dynamic, just steady presence on the outside. I think you're going to see Gabby explode this year. Gabby Hairston, from freshman to sophomore year here, her growth in the offseason has been really, really special. Jalen's going to be a senior this year, was one of our leading offensive attackers last year, and she's having a great spring as well, and really looking forward to taking on more leadership this year as a senior. Carla's ripping it from the end line on her jump serves. Just got back from playing with the U21 Mexican national team, which was such a cool thing for her and for us, representing Tech in that way. So, those are just a few names. I could probably go through and name just about all of them, but super, super proud of where we're headed.
And how do the assistants, Abby Pollard and Cammie Hicks, help for the overall connectivity of this team?
They're the reason I can sit here talking to you an hour before practice, because I know they've got everything else under control. They are absolutely they are my sanity. They keep me sane in all of this with all of the other stuff that I do that you've mentioned. They keep me sane, and they're just so conscientious with servants' hearts. They're wonderful, wonderful leaders. They are great examples, but neither one of them will even leave for the day without checking in. Hey, Coach, do you need anything? Hey, Coach, did you eat? Coach, don't stay here too late. They're always checking in on me, and I try to do the same for them. But it's just they're wonderful role models and great friends.
Well, no excuse not to eat today, from
exactly.
what I understand. The expectations for year one and the path that you intend to take towards the CUSA championships at the end of November.
Yeah. So, we can I could give you coach speak all over the place and talk around it and talk about, but it really does foundation and culture. It's foundation and culture this year. You got to walk before you can run. And, obviously the wins haven't been there. So how do we change that culture, change that expectation, and build the foundation? I think, getting to that middle of the pack, making conference tournament, those are very, very worthy goals and would be really good steps in the right direction. And who knows, man, the way these guys are working, the changes that they've embraced, why can't we get hot and do something, silly, go and win a championship and whatnot. So it's kind of like, hey, these are our reasonable goals, and here's the why not us. And keeping the balance there is really an interesting task that it's fun. It's a lot of fun going in knowing that we're capable of so much more.
Final thing, only because I got burned by Steve Volz, the head soccer coach, afterwards in talking to him at an event in Monroe. He told me he had a cup of coffee kicking with the Florida Gators when he was there playing club soccer, doing his undergrad in Gainesville. Nice. He actually was on the football team for a short time.
Cool.
So is there anything interesting that somebody wouldn't glean from reading their bio like me or scrubbing through your social media that folks might be surprised to know about you?
Pretty transparent. I put it out there, man. So everything you've found online, it's a pretty diverse background of doing a little bit of everything. And like I said, most of my friends and acquaintances always crack up the Montana thing you already hit on, and you nailed your research on this. So that's about all I got. I'm not that interesting beyond that stuff.
Fan Fest, you'll be there Friday.
Yep.
That is August 15th.
Absolutely.
Okay? So for those that are getting to this podcast, either visually or through the audio media, make sure you come out to the Joe, the brand new state-of-the-art turf, Friday, 6 to 8 o'clock, and you'll have some of your players out there signing autographs?
We'll all be out there. Okay. So we'll be doing some volleyball activities and just trying to get everybody on board, because this is going to be a fun team to watch, man. Come out to the TAC. We've got some really cool marketing things going on in conjunction with our matches, and I think you're just going to love the joy that our kids play with. And if you haven't seen a college volleyball match at this level, it's faster than you think. It's more physical than you think. It's more exciting than, the family reunion volleyball that you play, at the park. So come on out, check it out. I think you'll get hooked.
Scott, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, taking a drive down Tech Drive with us, if you will. One exhibition game is teed up for August 23rd at Northwestern State. First serve of the 25 campaign. Official debut for Scott Mattera is against Jackson State on August 29th in Hammond. And you can put your eyes on the Bulldogs for the first time in Ruston in September the 11th through the 13th, with matches scheduled against Jackson State, ULM, and Houston Christian as part of the Bulldog Bash. Many thanks again to Bulldogs head coach Scott Mattera for joining us on Tech Drive. GB, Carson, Jack, even Kevin for helping to facilitate this. Kyle Cavanaugh, I know he's waiting to bang in through this door outside. So many others who have helped to rebrand, reimagine this podcast. Here again, pleasure to have you on Tech Drive. I'm the voice of the Bulldogs, Kyle Schasberger. We'll leave it in park for now. Until next week, thank you for joining us here on Tech Drive.